welcome back to Power of the Mind with Granite Mountain Behavioral Healthcare and your host, Madison Isenberg, and I'm Elicia. So glad to have you back today. You are discussing my very favorite topic, narcissists.
Yes.
I love them because I don't love them, but it is so fascinating to me how this works. So we've touched a little bit on it, some red flags, some things. What are you diving into today?
So today we're going to talk about something that many people face, often in silence, having a narcissistic mother. We're going to talk about how that experience shapes you, can mold you emotionally, mentally, your physical well-being. We're going to talk about ways you can overcome it.
So I immediately go into a little panic when I hear this because if you're in a narcissistic relationship, although difficult, you can't escape. You're in a narcissistic mother, child, teenager, and you've been raised this way. You have no idea that this is wrong and how you can't escape. Let's go. Here we go.
So let's start with the basics, right?
Yeah.
A narcissistic mother is someone who exhibits traits of narcissistic personality disorder. But the specifics in her relationship and what we're going to discuss today is the relationship with their children. We're going to talk about how this disorder, what it does to those that are children, how it impacts, like I said, the body, the mind, and the spirit. So for a child raised by a narcissistic mother, it's very damaging. She may see her children as like an extension of herself. A lot of times narcissists do that, where they want their kids to be better at something and live their life through them. Narcissists do that often.
Well, and you talked about before, like the trophy or when you were talking about the relationship, I could imagine with a child, it's again, when you're no longer useful, I have no, you're not making me look good. It's crazy because I'm in the cheer world, as you know, competitive cheer. And I've seen tons of parent-child relationships. And I have seen some very severe cases of this kid does not want to be here, but the parent wants them there so bad. And it's such a status for some of these people. But I'm sure possible narcissism, but can you imagine that?
The turmoil that comes from having to do something you don't want to do, it's damaging to your spirit.
Right.
You know what I mean? And especially if they're doing it to please the narcissistic parent. And the hard part about that is this. Let's say the narcissistic mom, her daughter's on her cheer team. The things that's going to suck is, let's say this girl is throwing backflips everywhere. She's like on her A game, right? No matter what level she goes, it's never enough for her mother. So that feeling is left of, I'm not enough. And that can impact you. That can make a mark on your life with how you're going to respond to things if you go to that point of thinking, I'm not enough.
And so you see it with sports. Do you see it in other aspects of their life?
So absolutely. First, let's talk about like a mother though. So let's talk about the mother's low self-esteem. So she will insult you, making you feel like you're not enough, reiterating that belief of you're not enough. She critiques very often and rude, very rude. She leaves you feeling inadequate. That's how the conversations will end with a narcissistic mother, is the belief again of I'm not enough. Also, though, at the same time, the narcissistic has people-pleasing behavior. And what happens is the narcissist can put on two faces. And often it's confusing for others to say, but your mom like helps you stay active in everything.
She's great. I've met your mom. She's awesome. What are you talking about?
She makes you go to cheerleading. She makes you participate in all these
She
activities.
takes you everywhere. She buys you the cute stuff.
Sh-
She's your biggest cheerleader in the stands.
She's dressing you the nicest.
Mhm.
You have to be the best though, and that's a cost.
Yeah.
Um, as a child, though, many people learned that the only way to maintain peace was to prioritize their mom's needs first, above their own. This can extend to adulthood, where they might find that they struggle with setting boundaries, constantly seeking approval from others at the expense of, guess what? Their own happiness.
Mhm.
Because they don't know any better. That's how they've been raised. Often, people who have struggled with narcissistic mothers struggle with difficulty trusting others. When the primary caretaker uses manipulation or emotional abuse, it's hard to trust others in your life anywhere else. That's your major caretaker. You might become hypervigilant too, always on the lookout. Are they thinking about me? Are they mad at me? Do they really like me? Do they think I'm cute? Way too hypervigilant. And can I please them? Am I enough for them? Children of narcissistic mothers also struggle with fear of abandonment. Since narcissistic mothers can withdraw affection as a form of punishment, the children learn that love is conditional and can be taken away at any moment. This fear can blend into romantic relationships and friendships, where the fear of being abandoned is also in the background, just in the background, making noise constantly. And finally, there's an overwhelming sense of shame. Many of us internalize the idea that we are bad or defective because our mother made us feel unworthy.
Mhm.
This deep seated sense of shame can be one of the hardest things to heal. Shame based beliefs, I'm not enough, sticks with you. It's a core belief. So, you might ask, how do you heal?
How do you heal?
So, healing is a process that involves self compassion, it involves boundaries, and sometimes professional help. Here's where I want to share the story of Ubuntu, a powerful reminder that healing doesn't happen in isolation. There's an old story of an African anthropologist who was studying the tribe. One day, he placed a basket of fruit under the tree and he told the children, they were ages 5 to 7, he said, "All right, on the count of 3, whoever goes the fastest, runs the fastest, gets to get all the fruit." Now, I don't know if you know, but in Africa, right? Like, it's like a kid getting Pokemon cards here,
Right.
or like a kid getting LOL dolls, or like Imaginext toys. It's like the end, right? Fruit to them is like bountiful. It's a blessing. It's seen as a gift, right? So he was like, on the count of 3, whoever runs the fastest gets to get all this fruit. And he goes, 1, 2. And without saying one word, these kids linked hands and they walked together to the fruit. And they stood around the fruit in a circle and they all looked up at him and they start cheering, "Ubuntu, Ubuntu, Ubuntu." And he said, "I never really understood that meaning until one kid said to me, 'How could one of us be happy if one of us is sad?'"
Oh.
So I think the healing is like Ubuntu. It takes a tribe, it takes a village, it takes you and you to want to heal. You have to give yourself that same love and compassion of Ubuntu. Um, so some steps that we can take to heal from the experience of narcissistic abuse, right, is setting boundaries. Non-negotiable boundaries. If your mother is still in your life, you need to protect your emotional and mental well-being by setting clear boundaries. This could be limiting the time you spend with her or defining topics of conversation that are totally off limits. And don't be wishy-washy with it. A boundary is a boundary, girl, which
Right.
means what? What do you think a boundary means?
No.
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 Yeah, it's off limits. It's sticking to those boundaries. It's not just having them. And sometimes it's hard to implement, so be patient with yourself.
So if you know that, mom always picked on me about my hair or my, physical appearance, off boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
If she picked on you or her mode of narcissism was the successes, then it's like, we're not talking about my job. We're not talking about, I mean, it's how you doing, that sort of. So strong set boundaries. And if you give her an inch, she's going to take a mile, right?
Sometimes it's like just talking about the weather.
Mm-hmm.
You have to keep it real simple.
Hey, how you doing? Nice and warm outside. Great. See you later.
Yeah, because you matter. The abuse that you faced, if one of you are hearing this, the abuse that you faced as a child from your mother is painful. It's devastating and it's forever impacting your life and everyday choices you make and everyday actions that you do. It affects you. And you don't realize it affects you until it affects you.
Right.
And then you can't unsee what you see. Once you've seen the narcissist, you can't unsee it.
One of the things I always tell my kids is, because they'll, gosh, my daughter jumps in the car and she starts crying. And it's like, why are you crying? And it's like, you're their safe space. They've been holding it together all day. It was like my daughter, she was moving, she's going through everything and she's keeping it all together and she's all stressed out. She's got the baby and the kids and she's organizing and she sees me on Monday and she just starts crying. I was like, what are you doing? Like, what? And she's just like, I just have been holding, but you're the safe space. And to be a child and not have a safe space.
Can you imagine?
Mm-mm.
The belief of I'm not enough constantly is exhausting. Exhausting. So what else can we do, right? You've got to have that self compassion,
Mm-hmm.
that self talk, and not the self talk that you're used to,
Right.
the self talk that's like, hey, girl, you can do it. Hey, girl, let's go. Hey, girl, you got this.
Mm-hmm.
Because you've got to be your biggest cheerleader now, especially when you've grown up like that. You have to become your inner dialogue that is kind, loving, and compassionate to yourself. Another thing you can do is build a support system. Just like I said with
Mm-hmm.
Ubuntu, how could one of us be happy if we're not all happy? They said, if one of us is sad. I think the Ubuntu story teaches us that we are not meant to heal alone. I believe that surrounding yourself with a village, creating your tribe, is part of healing. Creating people who love you and support you just for who you are, not for what you can do for them, but for who you are. Whether it's friends, partners, or even online communities, whoever, let it be in your tribe and let them in.
100%. Because we learn with everything. If you have people supporting you, whether it's weight loss, stop smoking, giving up drugs, it's the more people in your life that know what you are trying to accomplish or know what you've been through, and you have that support system, the success rate has got to be way more than when you don't, right?
Think about it. Think how much better football players play when there's cheerleaders on the
Mm-hmm.
line and they're like, go, let's go, because it's encouraging.
Mm-hmm.
It is helping you remember to do better. Remember that you have that tribe there and that you're getting the support. You know, think about football players, right? Even this, they sometimes they play better at their home field,
Yeah.
you know?
100%. You have that home field advantage.
hmm So I think it's a lot like
Mm-hmm.
football. And I think also one of the hardest things to do when you're grieving this narcissistic relationship is allowing yourself to grieve the relationship, to grieve of what you were delusional of. Delusional of meaning what you couldn't see until you see it. And you've got to give yourself grace for that, for
Mm-hmm.
not understanding what you don't know, you know?
Well, because so much of who we are today, everything is based on those fundamentals, those core beliefs that you talk about. You know, I am a certain way because of the way I was raised and I had to be strong and I had to be, that is so in my DNA. It's so, I'm always in charge of everything. And it's because of my environment. Can you imagine your fundamentals, your building blocks are made of sand almost. There are no blocks.
Foundation. No
There's no
foundation.
foundation.
It's like if you build a foundation, you build a foundation of your house, right? Think of
Mm-hmm.
it like that. your house is going to remain sturdy. If you build your house on a cracked foundation, that house may
Mhm.
work for a while, but eventually that crack is going to get bigger.
Right.
And you have to think of the crack as your healing process of like, it's going to take time and it's going to take time to heal from it. But there's so much hope.
Mhm.
And there's so many things now, so many resources like therapy, like journaling, self reflection. But most importantly, what I want you to hear is I want you to reclaim your story. I want you to reclaim what was taken away from you by that narcissistic mother. Find who you are. If you don't know, that's fine. You can find out. It's
Right.
not too late, but give yourself that opportunity to be able to heal from this.
So my question is, you have a narcissistic mother. Is it now I'm a narcissistic mother. Am I a narcissist to everyone? Is that my personality? I'm a narcissist? Or is it a special little hell that I've created for just my child?
A narcissist, I would say, is a narcissist.
So we're treating the kids this way. We're treating our relationships this way. Everyone around me is a tool or a pawn,
Mhm.
including my own children.
Correct.
And like you said, when there's no longer value.
Bye-bye.
So do you see if you've got a family of multiple siblings, is they're like the forgotten child because you're not good at sports, you're not good at this, you just disgust me because you're not good at anything. So I've just stopped talking to you. You don't even exist in my world anymore.
Yeah. So in a dysfunctional family, that's where like the family roles will definitely start taking place. Like the family roles of like the scapegoat, the
Mhm.
hero child, you know? And that's where a dysfunctional family starts to take place, especially with a narcissistic parent, because they don't know what they don't know. But there will
Mhm.
definitely be a scapegoat with multiple kids.
Well, and it's, we all think, when somebody's mad at us, a boss or somebody like that, and the boss is angry, as long as he's not mad at me, I'm okay. Like
Mm-hmm.
he's yelling at somebody else, I'm cool. And, you always wonder, I don't want to say always, but you hear in those families, like they were so good to the three kids, but the one was just the one. And why didn't anybody do anything? Because at the end of the day, it wasn't me.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't the target.
Mm-hmm. Isn't
Wow.
that powerful?
Hmm.
It's so sad.
It's so sad.
But there's a lot of hope because you can heal through what you grow through if you go through it. You can't if you
I love
don't,
that.
you know?
Well, it's just, I always joke that these are my, weekly therapy sessions, but it really is. And on a very basic level, I have grown so much dealing, working with you and Greg and just hearing the other side of things and going, oh, yeah, that makes sense. And things that I don't want to deal with, I deal with them I'm very good at compartmentalizing. I'm like, okay, I don't want to deal with that. I just don't think about it. And I have a great ability to do that. I just don't want to think about it. I don't think about it. When did grandma die? Don't know. Don't know. I know I was there. Know I held her hand through it. Know it destroyed me. Don't know what date it was.
Mhm.
So I'm very good at that. And I think that people that come from those type of relationships in their life, and like I said, I was never abused. I think my dad has narcissistic tendencies, but used me as his tool, but never stopped loving me. I was always, his number one. But it's just crazy to see those people that you got to go through it and you have to deal with it because
Mhm.
it's like things that for me, and I know there's a lot of stuff I have to unpack and go through, but it's so much easier for me to go, nah, la, 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 doesn't exist, didn't happen, everything's great. I turned out just fine.
But you remember the theory that Greg said, right? About the ball.
Yes.
Okay, so remember when Greg said if you keep pushing the ball underwater, it comes up when you let go of your hands. And where does it go?
Mm-hmm.
Where does it hit you?
Right in the face.
Right in the face. So eventually, what you avoid and what you have struggled to face will one day hit you in the face.
Mm-hmm.
But the great thing that I've seen from you and what I've heard from you and what you model is grace. And like you do see the best in people. And so, like, I believe sometimes by what we go through, it makes us stronger and more vulnerable. And I believe in this case that that's you, with what you've gone through and being able to be like, I'm breaking this generational trauma
Right.
now.
Yeah.
That's healing.
Right. Well, and I wonder, because I think about that too when we're talking about the narcissistic mother, and it's learned behavior. You've watched this cycle and how easily, even if I'm not a narcissist, but I've been raised by a narcissist, how easily do you adapt those same personalities and reflect, do that to your children?
Well, think of this. All right. We're adults. We
Hmm.
have a level of self awareness. Most of us, right? Some of us, that's like a huge, like, that can go on a pendulum for any of us, meaning we have self awareness, we avoid it. We have self awareness, we avoid it. And it can swing back and forth like a pendulum. Well, think about like a pendulum with a kid, like you only know what you see.
Hmm.
So a lot of black and white thinking, because that's what you've seen with your parents. The narcissist has made an imprint on you.
Hmm.
And it's learning to give a voice to that voice that you did not have then. And as children, it's very difficult for them to have that level of self awareness as like we do as adults.
Hmm.
So they don't know what they don't know. And oftentimes that's what causes generational trauma, is because we only know what we know and what we see. And they're creating the same cycle with their family, or they have that level of self
Hmm.
awareness where they're breaking the cycle like you.
Right. Well, it's like my kids aren't going to be successful if I don't push them and I
Mm-hmm.
don't drive that.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you start realizing that, oh my gosh, this is completely wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, everybody wants their kid to be that star, but I'm okay with if they're just, it's, I deal with a lot of different positions on the cheer team. And that coveted position is that flyer up in the air. And it's so crazy to me. I watch the personalities of these moms who come in and they're just like, everything's fine. I don't care where she goes, as long as she's on the team, everything's awesome. And the minute that there's a little bit of status or something, it becomes so, even the most level headed moms. And if you're listening, I think you're all great. However, it is that thing where it's like your kid's success isn't let them do their thing.
Mm-hmm.
Quit driving this. It's so hard to watch because it's like they're going to fall. They're going to do this, but it's just like, it's not who your child is if they're not here. Everybody's important on that map, but it is just moms, I think, are so in tune with their kids that it's just, I don't know. If I did something wrong, it's like I've said that before. If I have a kid that has issues, what did I do wrong to cause that?
Mm-hmm.
So in the same breath, it's like if my kids are successful, what did I do to cause that? But I think we go opposite. Do you see narcissistic moms targeting daughters more than sons, or is it pretty equal?
So oftentimes what I see is I usually see the mother being harder on the girls and daughters, and what I see is usually a meshment with the sons, like no boundaries, friendships.
Bestie.
You my bestie.
You my bestie.
And a very blurred line when it comes to parenting.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like a friendship. So the mom is like on the kids, you know what?
Mm-hmm.
And then at the same time is chill as ever
With the boy.
with the boy. And I often see that repetitively.
Well, because as a mom, a narcissistic mom, that daughter is competition too,
Mhm.
because we're only getting older as moms and our daughters are only growing up and becoming more beautiful. And that is something I saw in my mom a lot.
Mhm.
Total competition all the time. And we're only 18 years apart, but it was always. And then I see the opposite too. I see moms that are so proud. I see some of these pictures on Instagram and social media, and their kids are just dressed in ways I wouldn't let my kids walk out of the door. And it's like, look how beautiful she is. And just so like, so enamored with, that social, how pretty is she, or how many guys are commenting on her photo. And it's just such a, like you said, blurred lines.
Mhm.
And not always a narcissist. I think a lot of times it's just, I didn't have this growing up, so you're going to have everything and you're going to be everything and I'm going to be that.
Mhm.
But that makes sense to me with the narcissist being harder on the daughter
Mhm.
because you're definitely competition and I'm the best and I am the.
And it goes on a whole different side of that, of like you're living through your daughter.
Mhm.
So like what you didn't get to do, you want your daughter, just like you said, to experience. You want
Right.
her to have more. You want her to
Mhm.
have everything you didn't, or you can go to, well, I didn't get to do this, so she's going to do this, or I didn't have these experiences, so my daughter's going to get to have more opportunities. And some of that is healthy, right? However, at what level do you live through your daughter to heal
Mhm.
your own wounds?
Right.
You know, trauma can come up also with kids with moms, narcissistic moms, or other moms. Like our childhood trauma can come up with our children. And so sometimes that narcissistic mother that has those unhealed wounds is living through her daughter because she only knows what she knows.
Right. See, I was the overindulging mom because I had the opposite. And like I said, my mom was, I think she just did the best she could. And we were best friends as we got older. But I was the protector. I was the nurturer. I was the, you know, are the bills paid? Did this happen? And the protector of my mom all the time. So my kids, like, you're never going to know that there's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
You will, I will fool you forever. If there's not enough food, I will find a way. That type of mom.
Mm-hmm.
And because I never dealt with that. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think even though I wasn't an abusive mom or a narcissist mom, I think it's just as bad because I have, children that I'm like, you got to get a job. You have to pay your way. You have to do these things. And they're like, well, why now? Like, you've been taking care of me my whole life. And now I have to. So and my husband and I will complain about it. And I'm like, dude, we created these monsters. We did this. My son, especially because he's the only boy, the baby boy. And it's like, don't make him pick weeds. Like, he had my grandson out there doing yard work. And I'm like, why are you making him do yard work? And my grandson's like, Nanny, I'm fine. I'm doing yard work. It's cool. Papa's giving me $40. I'm like, but it's so hot. Do you want it? Still, I'm this way.
But that's also just love,
I know. It's just hot.
And yeah,
But
sounds really healthy and loving.
yeah, I'm just like, let him come in for a little while and cool down. It's like, okay. But yeah, but my husband is not a nurturer. My husband is, if he calls, we were just talking about this day, if he calls and like, hey, if you look at your phone and dad's on there, it's like, what? Hello? Everything okay? Oh yeah, just calling to check in. Why? He's just not that guy.
Mm-hmm.
He loves his kids. He's just not that guy. But
Mm-hmm.
but his parents weren't those people either. So that's a whole nother story. So can we wrap up narcissistic moms? Do we get to talk about narcissistic dads?
We will. We will expand on that.
Awesome. So before we end it, I just want to, if you're going through this, or if you think, oh, my mom's not a narcissist, she was just really hard on us, or she just had really high expectations for us. And what do you do? Like, you get your village, you get therapy. I mean, it's journaling, I know is going to help, but what are some red flags that you see in your life being like, if you're unsure, like maybe I was raised by a narcissist, but I think that's pretty normal. What are some behaviors that you might exhibit that you need to make sure you seek help or you deal with this?
So if you struggle with that core belief of I'm not enough, I'm unlovable, I'm not seen, I'm not heard, And a core belief is something that you hear and it just sinks with you. And it goes back to your childhood from the experiences you endured before the age of 8. These core beliefs are formed, right? So usually when you were raised by a narcissistic parent, you're going to struggle even more with these belief systems. And they're usually going to be negative, almost always, right? So that's a red flag in itself. If you're struggling with those beliefs, I'm not enough, I'm unlovable, I'm not good enough, I can't do it, and you can't seem to shake it, you can't seem to get that out of your head, that's when you know you got to seek something else. Whether that's therapy, whether that's journaling, whether that's singing, whether that's pottery class. Do what you got to do to be okay, but do it.
And then you talked about setting boundaries. So we've established mom's a narcissist. We are getting therapy. We're fixing our life, and we've set boundaries with mom. Would you ever send your child to spend the night at grandma's house knowing how she was?
If it concerns safety, no.
Yeah. Because I wonder, is it safe? Like, we can't be together because you're toxic to me. I already know this. We've set our boundaries, but this is your grandchild. And day trips are okay, or in one occasional night over.
Mhm.
But what are you better be vigilant and making sure that your child does not come home going, oh, grandma's saying this or grandma did this, because who knows? I mean, did grandma heal since she's, now that she's grandma, is she going to put those same things on your kids?
So sometimes if a narcissistic mom grows up to be a grandma, I've seen some narcissistic moms heal and grow into these beautiful grannies, right? But at the same time, people don't heal unless you go through it and face it. You can't grow without it.
But we've learned too that narcissists are very good at pretending to be other people.
Absolutely. But at the root of the root, you know a narcissist by someone who can just drop you, ghost you, forget you, and it's like you're dead to them.
That's a good way to end. I think the subject right now is dead to me. We're done. Done. But I do look forward to exploring more traits. It is so fascinating to me. It's, it is just the mind and how different directions it can go in and how different things shape your life. And it's one of those things where I do kind of believe you're born a narcissist. I don't think this is learned behavior that, after talking to you, I just thought people became arrogant and, controlling, but it's definitely, gosh, fascinating.
Absolutely.
So, looking forward to the next part of this. Thank you so much as always, Madi. And thank you guys so much for tuning into Power of the Mind, brought to you by Granite Mountain Behavioral Healthcare. And we will see you next time.